Okay, so what is food insecurity or food hardship?
Food insecurity is when the availability of a food in a home is insufficient or uncertain or it's limited due to economic constraints. And in fact, 1 in 5 Hoosier kids, which equates to about 15% of Hoosier households, are food insecure.
And then what's the difference between that and food hardship?
Food hardship is when you don't have enough economic funds, when there's not enough money in the home to buy the food that you or your family needs. And in 2014, we know that Indiana ranked 21st in the nation for food hardship, nearly 1 in 6 Hoosier households.
Where do we see food insecurity in Indiana?
Food insecurity actually touches every community in every county in Indiana. Rural areas and urban areas seem to have similar numbers and have the highest rates. They're fairly similar, but both those rural and urban rates of food insecurity are higher than the rates found in the suburbs.
Okay, so how do Hoosier families cope with food insecurity?
Many families are forced to make very hard choices. According to our experts at Feeding Indiana's Hungry, we know that 75% of families have to choose between food and everyday things like utilities, transportation, and even medical care. And unfortunately, many families have to make multiple trade-offs each and every month.
What are some of the coping mechanisms that these families have to use?
Most food insecure families use coping methods such as eating inexpensive or unhealthy food, eating expired food, getting help from families and friends, selling or pawning personal goods, and even watering down the food and drinks that they consume, and that includes infant formula.
What kind of impact do those coping mechanisms and food insecurity in general have on Hoosier kids?
Certainly, the impact of an inadequate food supply can literally last a lifetime. And some of those potential impacts include developmental delays, trouble performing in school, health issues that can last into adulthood, and an increased likelihood of contracting illnesses. And many children have multiple negative impacts from growing up without the daily food they need to thrive.
How can these food insecure families get help?
Many families take advantage of school programs, including free and reduced lunch and breakfast when school is in session. Many also rely on other government programs such as SNAP benefits. At the same time, experts tell us that nearly 3 out of 10 food insecure Hoosier kids are not eligible for federal benefits. This is slightly higher than the national rate of 2 in 10. So Indiana's 3 out of 10, the national rate is 2 out of 10. So families, whether they receive government benefits or not, rely heavily on charitable groups like food banks, soup kitchens, and churches.
So how can other families help these families that are struggling?
Certainly, volunteers are always needed at food pantries, according to the experts. You can also donate products through food drives at your school, your church, your work. It's very important that all of us talk to our children about hunger and the importance of helping out. It's easy for kids to do those donation drives, like collecting supplies within their youth group or their sports teams or whatever that might be. The thing to keep in mind is that while those food drives are very easy to coordinate, at the same time, they can be somewhat labor intensive and time intensive for the food banks themselves. So one of the absolute easiest ways to help is to donate money directly to your area food bank. Because with that financial donation, the professionals at the food bank can buy in bulk, and based on the specific, they can also take into account the specific needs of their communities. And if you have ever worked with a food bank, you know that they are absolutely experts at stretching their funds, and they take full advantage of every dollar donated.
Cool. Why is summertime so challenging for food insecure families?
Summer is difficult from a food perspective for a couple of reasons. First, when kids are out of school, they're not guaranteed access to those breakfasts and lunches that they're used to receiving as part of their daily classroom experience. Secondly, families have to purchase more food and more meals for their kids that are home for school for the summer, yet their levels of assistance remain the same and there's no additional funding for the summer. The good news is that the Indiana Department of Education runs a very robust summer food service program. In fact, this summer there will be over 1,400 sites throughout the state. To find out more about the DOE programs, including specific site locations and hours, along with the income qualifications, you can call 211. You can call the DOE at 800-537-1142, or you can text FOOD to 877-877.